What's up, guys? Today I want to talk about the most important principle of animation. And no, it's not going to be arcs. It's not going to be overlapping action. It's not squash and stretch. The most important principle of animation that I guarantee, and there's a few guarantees in life, okay, besides death and taxes. One thing I guarantee that is the most important principle of animation that will drastically improve your animation within seconds, okay? Within seconds. And that is going to be undeniably the principle of contrast. Now, I know what you're thinking. Lucas, contrast is not a principle, okay? It's not one of the 12 principles of animation. And I hear you. I would argue that contrast, all right, is really the basis of the majority of the principles of animation, all 12 of them, okay? Because if you look at the principles of animation, and I'll do another video of an easier way of breaking them up, the main understanding of the principles is that it's really giving you ways to contrast your animation. Overlapping action, pose, right? Good stage direction. A lot of those has to deal with contrast. Now, when we break into contrast, how I like to break it into are two categories. One is going to be your curves. And what I mean by curves is not the curves on, in the graph editor. What I mean by that is that you're going to have your S curve, your C curve, and your straights. Okay, if you come from a traditional 2D background, this is just a refresher course, okay? But for those of you who don't, especially if you don't do any figure drawing, I highly advise you do this. It's really good when it comes to figuring out your posing. But when you look into a lot of your animations, you can usually break that down into an S curve, a C curve, and a straight. And if you just honestly animate your character based off of those curves, you'd be surprised how entertaining, how more fleshed out your animation becomes.
Grab the money.
Because I firmly believe in the main principle of contrast. When you look at an animation, it's kind of boring. The problem is contrast. If your body mechanics are fine, all of that, it's fine, the basics, right? The fundamentals are fine. Many cases, it's gonna be your contrast. Whether your pose, a bad pose, many cases, it's the contrast. When it comes to animation, what it really is an understanding of the rhythm and flow of contrast, the contrast of movement. To do a punch, right? There's some contrast. When we think of a punch, we're thinking of an antic, bam. That antic, I would argue, is contrast. You can just throw a punch. But to add further contrast, you want to go down, maybe back, and throw the punch. And then to add further contrast to the punch, or to sell the effectiveness of the punch, maybe have a big, a settle of the person, or a big, exaggerating pose of really overlapping, selling the shoulders, and add even further contrast to that punch. That's what I would argue, and you can do that through the S, the C curves, and the straights. And if you look at your animation and try to just block it out in, okay, what's the contrast here? Where's the peak of the contrast, and then where is it why I want less of the contrast? What are certain moments in my animation that I want to highlight, and what are certain moments that you want to be a little more subtle? You take this into account for acting. Acting is contrast, okay? When you do dialogue shots, there are usually those peaks and valleys in the acting. So in those peaks and valleys, you want to maybe have additional contrast. Or you maybe want to have a little more of a somber feel to contrast the peaks that you had previously. Even when you go into posing your face, right? One side, squash and stretch, contrast. That's what we're getting at.
Still bubbles on here. I think it's probably okay.
Now, the second category that I would argue that is peak when it comes to animation, the most crucial one, is not only the curves, but also the timing, okay? This is also another way, once again, under the umbrella of contrast. We got our curves, now we have our timing. And our timing basically goes into fast, medium, slow. That's what we got. With fast, medium, and slow, and curves, you can magically transform your animation within seconds. If something is not working, go into S, C, or straight, fast, medium, slow. Is all of your animation a bunch of S-curves? Well, I have S curve here, S curve there, S curve there. Is all of your animation a bunch of straights? You have too many straights in your animation where it's just, it's not really a lot of contrast in pose. It's boring, okay? If there a lot of the, C curves, okay, there needs to be some contrast in the posing. If you have the timing, say now you have a contrast in the posing. S goes to C, that goes to the straight, to another straight, to now C, to more S, right? But it's all happening at the same time. You have medium. Every shot is a medium. You've seen this probably in probably some of your own work, right? When you have a punch, but the punch, there's no emphasis. There's no contrast. It's just medium and tick, medium action, medium punch, medium follow through. Everything's just on the same beat. So you want to think about this in these terms, in these general terms, which will help you construct a better animation, I would argue. Because when you think of as far as offset, right? If you're going to do an offset, if you're jumping and releasing, how do you add contrast to that, right? Maybe we have an antic and then jump and release. Maybe we have a leading. We add additional contrast to that, where the head leads, then the body, and then we up. Maybe we offset the arms, or maybe we twist. Maybe we go down, twist, right? Then up, one arm comes, another arm. Even in the posing of the arm, you can have a lead with the elbow and have some contrast. The overlap, follow through, drag, all of those, I would argue, are variations of how you can add contrast to your work. How you can add that ebb and flow to get the feeling that you are aiming for. Because how someone who is angry obviously is not gonna have the same arcs, it's not gonna have the same timing as someone who is happy, someone who is jovial. And you can add that contrast to the face, to the movement, to the speed, to the actions of that character, to encompass who they are. So those are my tips for today. The fastest way to better improve your animation is to see where is it lacking in contrast. Do you need more contrast in shape, or do you need more contrast in timing? Given, obviously, all things being equal, that your body mechanics and your fundamentals are sound. These tips will drastically improve your animation, as they have mine when I was starting out. Anyways, guys, that's the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. Maybe you try it out on your animation. Shoot me an email. Maybe we'll get a reel going on here and do demo reel reviews and stuff like that. Let me know if this helps, and if it does, or if it doesn't. Hopefully it does. But if it does, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, guys, keep animating.